tonight, Dr. Mpoelang.
Thank you.
We talk about BOTSAT, that would be a first for our country, I believe. Before we even talk about where you are, the successful testing and everything that I just mentioned, just give us a brief synopsis of the project.
Okay. This project is about building a device called BOTSAT-1. A device is a satellite. But let me just go back and then just give you an idea of what normally happens in other countries. Other countries have got dedicated institutions that build satellites. They are called space agencies. The famous one is NASA. It's a national space agency. In Botswana, we don't have. So the government had a wish to build their own satellite. They looked around the country and asked who would actually do it. Our VC, Prof. Totolo, volunteered and said, I've got resources at BIUST, we can do it. Now, what it is BOTSAT-1, among other types of satellites, it's basically a floating camera. It's a camera in orbit.
Okay.
Yeah, but then it has to take characteristics, properties of satellites. And it has to be sent to space using technologies like any other satellite.
Okay.
Yeah. In this case, it's going to be launched by a SpaceX rocket.
Exciting things. Professor Totolo said, we volunteer to do this. We've got the resources. I take it as the project manager, you are the lead of these resources. But are we seeing students, or is it your fellow peers as well, participating in building this satellite?
It's a good question. Prof. Totolo managed to drive down the cost to a ridiculous low. Normally, I think approximately 5% of how other similar countries do it. For this reason, he took his own resources, personnel, within BIUST, not just the core. Of course, we've got core engineers and scientists, there are about 10. But he took his own resources, close to 100, to work on this. On voluntary basis. So that is how we managed to pull it off. Yes, there are students on the, working, doing some various projects or concerning science of the satellite. We have had a first cohort which was more biased towards engineering. The current cohort from UB, Buang, BIUST, because it's national, they're doing various projects at those institutions. So the secret and a very commendable thing for Prof. Totolo that what he has done is that he saved millions by just pulling off the resources from BIUST.
Okay.
Of course, it was not nice for us because we had to work 48 hours a day.
And of course, it was such a great learning endeavor.
Yes.
But let's just talk about why then it is important for countries like Botswana, certainly on the African continent, to have a satellite of its own. What does this speak to? What does it address?
Yeah, mainly two things. One, you want your own data. You want to have your own data for analysis. You don't want to rely on other satellites, which could be expensive. Another, it's skills development. Like, for example, we are going around the country inspiring even Form 5s. During the launch, they will be there at the center stage of everything. They are doing their model satellite as we speak. But more importantly, even though it's a small satellite comparatively compared to the United States of America ones, it challenges the ecosystem to wake up. Okay? Before a satellite, you need BOCRA. Okay? Before you build a satellite, you need the ministry to take part. For example, the two ministries are working on the project. They are cooperating, Ministry of Higher Education, because of BIUST, we are under them, and the Ministry of Communications and Innovation. And BOCRA is a key partner in there.
As a regulator.
So it sort of forced us to wake up and then be aware, rather than just importing a technology, which is very commendable.
But I think out of what you've said, there's one thing that stands out for me. You want to own, as a country, you want to own your own data.
Yes.
What is it that we are looking for with this data? What is it that we hope this data would drive and achieve?
Yeah, it's actually driving me into the next one that I was going to share with you. What are the applications? Why orbiting camera at an altitude of 510 kilometers. That is low, that's Francistown. That is really high. There is no plane that flies above 20, but it's going to be at 500. Okay. That's why we require a rocket to launch it there. Now, while it's there, we are going to look at key things: the environment, food, agro, grazing, town planning, roads, Okavango Delta. So we are going to own this data and then have it. And then what we intend to do is to make it accessible to many sectors across government, private, small businesses. We really want to stimulate, especially youth, to bring up innovative ideas that will trigger their business ideas as well.
Okay. Yeah. Now, as per our introduction, we talk about that you have done your assembly, integration, and testing. Now we're just looking for the launch. You mentioned that the launch will be done by SpaceX. For those who don't know, when we talk SpaceX, it's synonymous with Elon Musk. Let's just talk about where we are then. We keep on saying the launch is very soon, but what is very soon? When is the launch of this?
Well, the exact date is proprietary. We are not allowed to explicitly mention it or talk about it. Those were the takeaways dealing with high-profile launch like SpaceX. But officially, we say not earlier than March. So it means that normally it means close to the beginning of March, but not early. It can be March, April, because the conditions of launch are so complex that they reserve the right to shift.
Okay. Now, in coming up with BOTSAT 1, you did this in partnership with a Bulgarian company. You are being launched by an American company. Let's just talk about what these collaboration mean in terms of technological advancement for us, what these collaborations mean in terms of really as no longer being a consumer, but actually participating and having something to share and place to the rest of the globe.
Okay, yeah, it's a good question. I can see why you are here. Now, I will just pick one example of partnership that is outstanding. First, the name SpaceX. It's goodwill. Okay, it brings attention to Botswana. Oh, Botswana launched with SpaceX. There are other countries or other companies that do launch, but we chose SpaceX because it is not because it was easy, but we knew that we are going to have some limelight as launching SpaceX. Here is what it did. It made us have attention of Starlink. That is a branch of SpaceX that looks at supplying internet services or providing internet services to rural areas. So Starlink is very close to us, and they are promising a lot of goodies around BOTSAT as well, not just observing Earth. So we will be working with them as well. Then in EnduroSat, countless, I would say, opportunities that we got with them. Another one company that we partnered with indirectly, it's very important. It's an African company. It is called Dragonfly. It's in South Africa. It's actually a spin-off company from Stellenbosch. That company does one thing on the satellite, cameras. That's all it does. And then it's very funny that there was a time where they were telling us that we are polishing your lens, and the polishing a lens of the camera takes about 8 months. Okay, especially the lens, like continuously. So they are that high tech at nano level, and we are proud we worked with them as another African company or country.
I think it's quite interesting you mentioned your collaboration with Stellenbosch University, being a university as well, and the sort of role that you then play as institutions of higher learning in advancing either technological innovation, in advancing whatever it may be in growing the economy. Let's just speak to that for a bit.
Yeah, even though we don't directly work officially as BIUST with Stellenbosch, it is the company, spin-off company that we're working with. But the good thing is, because we are experimenting everything from scratch, still, even if we had maybe a space agency, BIUST would have been the best to do this, because naturally it's about testing, failing, retesting, doing that. Oh, students, could you please help here and there? That ecosystem worked very well for us. And then we have partners that are in the academic context that we are working with.
Okay.
I can take the whole day talking about that. Yeah.
Once we are running out of time, but once launched, what does it mean? Not just you mentioned data and everything else, being able to use this data across a number of sectors in the country, but what does it mean for me, either from a job creation perspective or an economic diversification perspective? Once it's launched, how would the landscape change?
Almost instantly. The first thing is at least awareness. That's why I'm here. Mm-hmm. So people, okay, we are launching a satellite. The second thing that is so key, data itself, it is the root of everything. Okay, we have engineered the technology. We are going to avail data to many sectors, especially recently when we did an update to the president about this, I was impressed. He just focused on data, because that's where the value chain comes from. Of course, it will be floating, but what is the value chain of the data? So I'm pleased to say that we have started conversations with BDIH. Taxpayers build a data center there. We are not going to duplicate it. So BOTSAT will beam and spit images to BDIH, and it's in the ecosystem of businesses, entrepreneurship already. Okay. So it is going to be a perfect symbiotic relationship between us and BDIH for that reason.
Earlier you mentioned BOCRA, for example, as a regulator. Let's just speak to the legal framework. Has to change to allow for the satellite to operate? Do we have everything in place to allow and enable and facilitate whatever it is we want to achieve with BOTSAT?
Yeah, before that, I want to emphasize the fact that for this project, people may undervalue BOTSAT. Mm-hmm. The fact that we do not have a space agency, mm-hmm. it's a legal framework on its own. How did we do it? Mm-hmm. It's BOCRA. Okay. So we are safe because of BOCRA. BOCRA, of course, is an affiliate of ITU, which is international. They work by international laws. And then it really helped a lot. I would say that, for example, we have the ground station, which is what will receive the data. We worked with BOCRA. The satellite has to be separately licensed. We worked with both BOCRA. I would say that both of them are fairly okay in terms of regulation. They wouldn't be in the launch, okay, if they were not in the proper books. Even though for the satellite side it's not quite complete, the other ones are fine.
The name BOTSAT, is it Botswana Satellite?
Botswana Satellite.
Okay, no, thank you so much, sir. We were talking to Dr. Dimane Mpoelang from Mpoelang from BIUST, speaking to us about BOTSAT, Botswana's first satellite, that it will be launching quite very soon. For some reason, they cannot mention the actual date, but it's an exciting development in a technological advancement of this country, in ensuring that we've got a data-driven decision-making, really driving our economic growth, speaking to a number of sectors. We will be waiting with much anticipation to see how this unfolds. Benson Puteho comes in at 7 o'clock with the news in Botswana.
Bagaitso, hurt people will hurt other people. So let's break the cycle